Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, and Congresswoman Jackie Speier of California. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Professor.
Glad to be with you.
Congresswoman Lee, let me start with you. How disappointed are this assault weapons ban was dropped today?
I'm extremely disappointed because these weapons of war belong on the combat field, not on the streets of America. And I'm very pleased, though, that Senator Feinstein is such a fighter, and we're going to continue to fight until this gets done. People have to hold their members of Congress, both House and Senate, accountable, and I think now's the time. It's a wake-up call, and people have got to push forward and come to Washington and insist that there be some accountability to gun control and gun safety legislation.
Congresswoman Schakowsky, in light of what Congresswoman Lee has said in terms of holding people responsible, do we hold Congresspeople responsible for giving in to and abdicating the fight to the NRA? Has the NRA really won this fight?
You know, that headline, that front cover of the newspaper that said, "Shame on us," should be a rallying cry of the American people, where the overwhelming majority want background checks, they want anti-trafficking bills, and yes, they want a ban on assault weapons. If they don't rise up, then the NRA is going to win again. And it's really a choice of the American people right now, whether or not they're going to call their members of the Senate, the House of Representatives, or they're just going to let the NRA hold us all hostage to the gun lobby.
Sure. Congresswoman Speier, if you can't get an assault weapons ban now, when in the world will we be able to get one?
We're not going to wait for the next massive killing in this country for us to get religion on this issue. You know, Senator Feinstein, I was with her last night, and while she was very disappointed in what she heard from Majority Leader Reid, she was very clear about taking this fight to its full and complete resolution. And I think all of us have got to say to our colleagues in Congress that fear is not an option. Fear of not being reelected, fear of the NRA, we are in fear right now, and we've got to stop it.
Right. Congresswoman Lee, is there anything that Congress can pass that will curb the violence? Because a lot of people have been pushing back saying, look, there's nothing that can be done in Washington, D.C. that would protect our children in the vast majority of America. Do you agree with that?
I refuse to believe that. I believe that we can pass background checks. I'm hoping that we'll pass some version of a repeal of what they call the T-Hart Amendment, which is a rider that's been attached to the appropriations bills without any debate in Congress. Congressman Moran, myself, Congresswoman Speier and Schakowsky, all of us are trying to work to repeal the T-Hart Amendment, which means that it would make it easier for law enforcement to conduct gun tracing efforts. Right now, they're prevented in so many ways from just basically tracing guns. So I think there are some measures, but it's an uphill battle. Again, we've got to ask the American people to know that this is a wake-up call, and you've got to rally around ensuring that your members of Congress are accountable to what you believe will provide for a safe future for our children.
Congresswoman Schakowsky, when this Newtown, Connecticut situation happened, the American people were simply horrified and felt that this was the tipping point. This was the signal moment to the American people that something had to be done, and politicians vowed on every side to do so. But here we are a little while later, and it seems to be all that momentum has been lost. How do we gin it back up, and how do we galvanize the American people to defend our children and others in this country who are victims of gun violence?
Oh, I don't think that the battle is over by any means, and I don't believe that the enthusiasm is gone. Almost every day I'm part of some kind of a meeting or conference call on ending gun violence and passing this legislation. And you ask, does it make a difference? There are already studies that show that the 14 states that require background checks on handguns, that there's a decrease in gun trafficking, a shooting of women by intimate partners, that suicides by guns are decreased by 28%. So we know that passing this legislation actually does work, and the American people, I really don't think, are going to give up. I know that's true.
All right. Congresswoman Speier, in your district, what do you hear from the people there? Are they simply fed up? Do they want you to take action? Do they want the rest of the Congress to take action? As you take a straw poll and get a sense of the heat index of how people are responding, what do you hear?
Well, in my district, they want us to get a steel backbone. they want us to speak on behalf of the people and not the NRA. I did a gun buyback in my district just a few weeks ago. It's the second lowest crime rate in the state. And we collected 685 guns, 24 assault weapons, magazines, and silencers, and 1 street sweeper. And if that's the kind of guns that are in our communities, it's time to rethink whether or not we need them in our homes. And as Jan Schakowsky had said, there's a higher incidence of gun violence in homes when you have a gun. You're more likely to be killed by an intimate partner than you are by a stranger. And I had a number of people who said to me, I asked them, why are you coming here and why are you giving up your guns? She said, you know, I've got small kids. This was something that came to me from my grandfather or uncle. I don't need it anymore. And I think we're all rethinking whether or not we need guns in our homes.
To all three of you distinguished ladies, let me ask you this question. Do you talk with your Republican colleagues about this issue? Do they say they really believe they don't think we need to do something after the horrific tragedy in Newtown?
Well, let me just say that I think it's at their peril that they ignore this issue. 91% of Americans say that they want universal background checks. It's pretty hard to resist that. And I also want to say, Professor, I know there's a gender gap, that moms all over this country who identify as Democrats or independents don't want to be fearful when their children go to school or to the movies and are ready to rise up and demand that we do something about this.
There's an organization called Moms Demand Action. They were up here several weeks ago in Washington, D.C. Phenomenal women who came together to organize after the tragedy in Newtown. And believe you me, these were Republican, Independent, and Democratic women, and they're on the march. They're going to make sure that action is taken in the Congress, and they have to hold their representatives once again. We have to hold our representatives accountable, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. And so as we talk to Republicans, you know, they may be a little reticent to move forward. They don't want to do it. Of course, as Congresswoman Schakowsky said, the gun lobby is alive and well. But believe you me, the power of the people and the voices of the people, I think, will ultimately prevail.
I also think that we should demand that a vote takes place on the House floor, demand that votes take place on the Senate floor. No one should be somehow cushioned from having to take a stand on this issue. And the Connecticut effect, which is what the NRA talked about, we're going to wait until the Connecticut effect wears off. That's what's happened in their mind, and we can't let that happen. We can't let the 20 little coffins that passed through that town and the 6 adults who lost their lives be lost for no reason. We must act on this issue, and we've got to keep it alive.
But here's the real question. Tell our viewers, because I don't think they know, do you in Congress who work with each other see each other every day? Do you have discussions with Republicans about this issue at all? Is there a kind of daily transaction between you all?
Not really.
Well, I think you're hearing kind of a silence in response to that question, because there really hasn't been across the aisle conversations about guns. I know that there are some Republicans that if they had their druthers would actually vote the NRA and would stand up for the people in their district. We're hoping that they will find courage from the people who are contacting them. I hope they're hearing from them every day. If they're not, shame on the people in the district that want the bills passed.
Let me ask you this. What about in social situations? You all must have a drink of coffee, of tea, of espresso. Is there not any kind of transaction between, it's amazing to me that we don't have any transactions between, conversations between congresspeople across the aisle that just as human beings, at the end of the day, when you take off your Democrat or Republican, you're just human beings. My God, this is a national travesty here. Do you have any kind of conversation?
Well, this environment is not really conducive to that type of conversation for a lot of reasons, as you know. And I think the real debate is going to begin when some of these bills begin to be debated in the Congress. We have a gun task force here on our side. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and we're going to have a debate as we try to repeal the T-Hart Amendment. So we're going to see some discussion and dialogue take place, but I think it should be in the public view. I think people should hear what their representatives are saying and what Republicans are saying.
I do know, Professor, that Mike Thompson, who is head of our task force on guns, has been talking to Republicans. I just don't know what the report is, but he's definitely been reaching across the aisle.
Right. No, I have no doubt that you're reaching across the aisle. I hope that something's coming back besides a fist, maybe some conversation, some words that can heal the nation.
I hope so.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and Congresswoman